I mean issues like correlates of protection come into play, because if one is looking at the regular seasonal influenza vaccines, I mean, these are things that are reasonably well known, and regulators are familiar with what needs to be adjusted when you're talking of Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere vaccine every year. But what we're looking at, if we're thinking of looking for a universal vaccine or broadly protective vaccine, requires us to go into areas which regulators are aware of, but probably have not really given much thought to in terms of specifying the criteria. And that is actually very critical, because when you're looking at research and development, and whether you're looking at new trials to generate data, the researchers and the principal investigators must be clear what information is required at the end of the day by the regulators. And here, the issue is mainly by regulators in developed countries. We're not even talking really of regulators where capacity is much more limited in low and middle income countries. And so these kinds of issues have to be clear both to the regulatory community as well as to the R&D community. And that's where discussion early is important. So if you're looking at new issues, whether it is correlates of protection or whether there is discussion on using human challenge studies, the kind of data required is very different from a traditional phase 1 to phase 3 trial by the time the information comes through in dossiers. And so regulators need to be sensitized to this as well before, in fact, the regulatory guidelines and criteria can be clearly stated. Otherwise, you will end up with a situation where the R&D community moves in a certain direction, it assembles data which it thinks the regulators need, and it comes to the point at when it's submitted that it's not adequate, and you can potentially waste a lot of time in that. So you need to look at these issues early and then work together to address them up front.